Welcome to the Algebra 2 lecture video for Chapter 1, Section 4. This section is about rewriting formulas and then evaluating using one known value, and we're going to do it just like we've been doing everything in this section. So it says rewrite the following formula for R. So what that means is we want to isolate R. So which side is R on, the left or the right? Correct, it's on the right hand side. How do we get R by itself? Well, that means that we have to move everything else. So what's over on the right hand side with R? Well, you've got a 2 and you've got a pi. Now, we always do opposites, so when it's written as 2 pi, if I group this with parentheses like that, okay, are we adding the 2 pi with the R, subtracting it, multiplying it, or dividing it? Well, we're multiplying, so what's the opposite of multiplication? Right, division. So we're going to divide both sides by 2 pi. Here they cancel, and we just have the R on the right hand side. And then over here on the left, can anything simplify? No. So it just stays as C over 2 pi. And this is your final answer. So all they want you to do is get the piece that they tell you to by itself. So you're going to do your regular calculations, use your PEMDAS, all of that, where you're doing opposites at every step, and whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. Okay, so that's part 1 right here. And then part 2 says solve for C equals 44. So let me plug in. We know that C equals 44, and our formula says C over 2 pi equals R. So plug in your C value. They want you to use your calculators here in order to find a decimal approximation of R, and I want you to go out 2 decimal places. So we're going to get 44 over 2 pi, and you get 7.0028179. Okay, now I only want you to go out 2 decimal places, so we're going to just go out to 7. So that is what your radius should be to have a circumference of 44. Okay, so it's a 2-step process. 1, isolate the indicated variable using your algebraic skills. Use your answer from here in order to find the solution for the given situation. Okay, so all of these are going to be built like that. They're going to be 2 or 3 steps. All right, again, rewrite the following formula for W. So which variable are we trying to isolate? W. So we're going to get rid of everything else. Here's your W. So what do we have to get rid of? Well, we have to get rid of this 2, but we also have to get rid of the 2L. And we always get rid of addition and subtraction first. So that means that we're going to get rid of the 2L to begin with. Okay, so let's get rid of the 2L. So you're going to subtract it from both sides. Now, P minus 2L. Is there anything there that you can group? No. So it comes down just like that. Here's your equal sign from here. This cancels and leaves you with just 2W. Now again, what are we trying to get by itself? The W. So how do you get W by itself now? Divide by 2. Divide by 2. This cancels. W equals P minus 2L over 2. That's your answer. Okay, we have the indicated variable isolated. They said isolate W. We have W isolated. And that's all we're trying to get to. So now we can use this answer for the second part of the problem, which says solve for W when L equals 12 and P equals 41. So you're going to take your equation and just plug in the values they give you. So we're going to take our equation, plug in what we know, and then solve. Okay, 17 over 2. This cannot reduce, so you can leave it in this form, or you can convert it into a decimal if you want to, but remember, you don't have to. Okay, and there you go. So it's the same basic process as what we went through on the other side. Take an equation they give you, isolate the indicated variable, which means get it completely by itself. So we move everything else to the other side. Once we do that, we use our new formula and plug in what we know, and then solve for the remaining variable. And that's our process. Okay, solve the following equation for y. Same basic approach, except now we want to just get the y by itself. So think of y as our variable, and everything else is just a number. Okay, y is what we're trying to isolate. So which side of the equal sign is y on, the left or the right? The left. So we're still going to put our bar, but now we know that we have to get everything else from the left-hand side away over to the right, so we have y equals something. So, same steps as always. Okay, we start with addition and subtraction. So, we do not start with the y piece, but anything else. So remember, if there's no sign, it's a plus. So how do you get rid of 9x? You subtract 9x. And you subtract it from both sides. Okay, on the left, 9x, take away 9x is 0. And that leaves you with a negative 4y. Make sure that you grab this sign and bring it down with it. Now on the right, we have 7 and we have 9x. Can we combine those? No, we can't, because one has an x and one doesn't. So it just gets rewritten like this. Okay, now, again, we're trying to get y by itself. So, y is on the left, so we're just going to look right here on the left. What's over there with y that shouldn't be? The negative 4. Is this negative 4 plus y, minus y, times y, or divide by y? That's times y. So what's the opposite? Division. And we're going to divide by not just 4, but negative 4. We want to take the sign along with it, so everything cancels out to be a positive y. And that's your final answer. So there you go. And this is just like what we did on the other screen. Okay? We have our equation now where it's y equals something involving x. And this says solve for y when x equals negative 5. So we're going to take our equation and you just put in the value that they give you. Okay, we work across the top first and follow our order of operations. So what's negative 9 times negative 5? That's going to be positive 40. And we're going to get, this cannot reduce, so you can leave it in that form. Or if you want to, you can put the negative outside like that. Either answer is perfectly acceptable. And that's it, you're done. So again, it's the same approach as what we've been doing on the previous slides. They give you a variable to isolate. So we move everything else from the left side to the right side, so we wind up with just the one variable they ask for. Then we use our new equation from here, plug in a known value or a given value, and then simplify down, because if you notice, are there any variables on the right? No, they're all numbers, which means that we can simplify them down into a more simplistic answer, which is this fraction right here. Okay? So that's all they're having you do, is manipulate this equation to get something else and then use it. This is a very typical math approach on where they give you something, you have to make a change to it, and then use the changed version to get to the end result. Okay, so this type of manipulation is something that you're going to be doing this year, next year in year 2, and you're going to be doing it in college in your entry-level math classes. So it's really important. So it's really important that you learn how to manipulate equations in this style, because you're going to be using it for a long time. Okay, solve the equation for y. Same thing, right? There's just one little hiccup. Take a look here. Okay, we've got a 2y plus an xy equals 6. Now, we want to get 1y by itself. But how many of them do we have here? Right, we have 2. So if you have 2y's plus xy's, is there a way that we can combine those? They're the same type of item. They're both y's. So what that means is that this becomes 2 plus x times y equals 6. Okay? So it's just like combining. If this were a 3 instead of an x, 2y plus 3y is 5y. So we're doing the same move, 2 plus the x, and then y is outside because it's the type of object we have. It just looks weird because we do not know what x is yet. Okay? So now we want to get y by itself. When you have a parenthesis next to the y, are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? We're multiplying, so we're going to do the opposite of that and divide. And what do we want to get rid of? The 2 plus x. Now, we can only divide by 2 plus x because it's in parentheses up here. Okay, if there are no parentheses, we are not allowed to do this because the 2 is not attached to the y if there are no parentheses. However, we have parentheses here and here, which is saying that the 2 is attached to the y and the x is attached to the y. So whenever you have something in parentheses, you can divide it as long as you use parentheses. You can take the entire piece and divide it over from the left side to the right side. And here, they cancel off entirely. And that'll leave you with y equals 6 over 2 plus x. Now if you notice, I didn't put the parentheses back in on the bottom. You can. It won't change anything. What you need to make sure of, though, is that the 2 plus x is clearly under your division bar. Okay, students like to make really short division bars, and I cannot tell what you're telling me is being divided by what. So if you're not sure if you're making a proper division bar, throw in parentheses, and that'll tell me, hey, these are grouped together. So that way I can figure out what you're trying to say. But back to our problem. Y here is isolated, so this is our new formula. Okay, what's our given value of x? -3, so we just plug that in. Remember, whenever you substitute, use parentheses, especially if you have a negative sign as the piece that you're substituting in. Okay, and what's 2 plus take away 3? Well, that's -1. 6 divided by -1 simplifies to just -6. So there's your answer. Done and done. Okay? So it's the same process, but again, it got a little weird right here. This is actually what you're doing when you're simplifying, which I know you can do, because we've been doing that for the last 2 sections now. But it just looks different because we have a variable thrown in there instead of a number that we're used to seeing. Okay, but this process is actually exactly the same thing that you do when you combine normally. It just looks different. Okay, so trust yourselves. You know how to do this. And here's your homework. Chapter 1, Section 4. So take a look at it. Remember, if you have questions, make sure you bring them in and get them answered. And if you have any questions on the homework, make sure that you watch the homework video to try to figure them out, and then bring your questions into me. Okay? Because most of your questions, I think, will get answered by the video, so please use it.